I would just like to clarify, I'm not a pyromaniac. I just like setting things on fire. There's a difference. Hi, I'm Melissa Clark. I'm in the NYT Cooking studio, and I'm going to show you how to flambé. Flambeing is setting alcohol on fire and allowing the flames to reduce the alcohol content to condense the flavor. You had crepe Suzette, certainly, bananas Foster, and then of course, Bomb Alaska. This dish is a party. So today I'm going to make Cherries Jubilee and steak Diane. These will taste equally good if you don't flambe them, but then you are missing out on some of the fun. Flambeing really grew when tableside service became a thing in restaurants. You would have waiters or chefs come out and cook food right next to your table. And this was very luxurious, very pampering. Then, of course, there's another tradition, which is flambeing in the kitchen for a pan sauce. Because if you add alcohol to a pan sauce and you flambe it, it condenses the flavors and it burns off some of the alcohol, and it just gives you a richer, better sauce. So flambeing is very safe if you're careful. So you just want to make sure you want to have a big, sturdy pot lid nearby, right? Because if you get a little nervous about the flames or if they're going too high, this is going to stop them immediately. You don't need a gas stove to flambe. All you need is a little stick lighter or a long match. Do not try to flambe with a short lighter because you will hurt yourself. I have done it. Whenever you flambe anything, when you're done with the bottle of booze or you're done with the ladle, put them a couple of feet away from the heat source. You don't want them to spontaneously combust. Is that for insurance? Just in case. They don't trust me. They don't trust me, do they? Cherries Jubilee, it was a recipe that was first made in the late 19th century to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. So you have pitted fresh cherries. This really works better with fresh cherries than with frozen cherries. I'm going to flavor it with a little bit of orange, butter, cardamom, sugar, and then of course the brandy. This is such a good recipe because it has the retro appeal, but it's also really delicious. I hadn't made it in a long time, and when I was testing the recipe, this needs to come back in my life. I'm going to add a little bit of orange juice. You want about 2 tablespoons or so. I'm just going to bruise the cardamom a little bit just to release the seeds so that they're going to add more flavor. So just side of your knife, just lean on it, and then into the pan. A little bit of sugar. And all I'm doing right now is dissolving the sugar in the butter and letting the cardamom release its flavors into the sauce. Cardamom is my personal special touch. The Queen did not get cardamom that I know of. I bet she would like it though. So once the sugar is dissolved, then you can add your cherries and your orange. And these get cooked for like 2 to 3 minutes just till they get saucy. Okay, so what I'm looking for, you can see the cherries start to change color. They're getting a little bit brown. And you don't want to cook them too much because you want them to still have a crisp texture. Crisp soft. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, now the fun part. So we want to add our brandy. So you want to use a metal ladle. The heat underneath the pan is off. And here's another thing. The alcohol is not going to catch on fire until it's warm. So we're taking this straight out of the bottle. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just take this lighter and I'm going to just drag it across the surface to warm it. And then as it gets warm, it's going to ignite with the blue flames. Okay, so you see how it's flaming up around the cherries? And you just want it to flame for 30 seconds to a minute until it dies down. And again, if you're nervous, you can stand here like this with this cover because the second you put the cover over it, the flames are going to be extinguished. Much of the alcohol has been cooked off at this point. I'm going to put the heat back on. I'm just going to cook it for another minute or two just to blend the flavors. Oh my God, it's really good. That's it, done. Where's the ice cream? You can make the cherries ahead, by the way, and then just flambe them and serve them at the last minute. You'll notice this sauce is a little bit thinner than maybe you've seen Cherries Jubilee before. I don't use cornstarch. Really, the ice cream is what's gonna thicken it up. Now I get to eat it. There's alchemy to this dish. Seriously, this is so much better than it should be for the amount of time and the few ingredients that I used. I wanna eat this all the time. Steak Diane was one of those 1930s dishes, became very popular in London. At a fancy restaurant, you'd go and the captain would make the steak tableside and serve it to you. It is still a thing. Most of the recipes I see, though, don't call for flambeing. They just call for making a pan sauce. But if you flambe the brandy in the sauce, you're just gonna get a slightly richer flavor. So if you have time to season it ahead, do so. Also, if you have a nice thick steak like this one, you might as well salt the edges. I mean, you're gonna eat the edges, right? I'm gonna add butter and oil to the pan. And you wanna use both. You wanna use butter for flavor and oil to raise the smoke point. So I'm using a neutral oil. I'm using grapeseed oil, not olive oil. And grapeseed oil has a higher smoke point than olive oil does. You can raise the temperature even more before the pan will start to smoke. I'm gonna wait until the foam subsides before I add the steak to the pan. That way you know everything is really hot. Even sitting for 2 minutes like I just did, you can see the steak is a little bit slick, right? So I'm just gonna pat that dry. And patting it dry will give it a better sear. Okay. This is a strip steak. You can use any kind of steak to make steak Diane. Filet mignon is very traditional. Just use your favorite steak. Any steak that you love to pan cook, to pan sear, is gonna be great for this recipe. So the thing about making steak, and this is really hard for me, don't touch it. Don't touch it, just let it sit there. I've got my tongs in my hand. I want to touch it, but nope, nope, not touching it. Letting it do its thing. Okay, right there. See, there's usually, you can kind of see almost the line of how it's starting to cook, right? You can see that change. You see the steak cooking, which I think is really exciting. So once you see that, then you know, oh, okay, my steak, the heat is rising, it's cooking the meat, and now I can flip it. So for a steak this thick, I will probably cook it about 2 minutes each side, because I like it rare. You cook it for as long as, 3 minutes if you like it more well done. So do you see that layer of fat on the side there? I'm gonna brown that, because I really, really like to eat that fat. Remember I was talking about smoke point? So the smoke point has been reached. I'm turning the heat down a little bit. You have a fan? Okay. Hi, oh look. I've never ever seen this before. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna let this rest while I make the pan sauce. And I'm just gonna take a little bowl, turn it upside down to keep it warm. Instead of foil, you could use foil. It's gonna steam either way. This is not about a crunchy crust, this is about a browned, beautiful crust. I'm gonna put the heat back on low, and now I'm going to add shallots. You could use onion. And what I'm gonna do is let the tomato paste turn golden. So cooking the tomato paste really just gives it a richer flavor. You sort of increase the caramelization, it's great. So it goes from like this bright red to like a dark, rusty, golden color. And now I set it on fire, right? Now I set it on fire. Now the fun part. Okay, so again, I'm going to turn the heat off. And the reason I'm turning the fire off before I flambe something is I want to be able to control the flames. I don't want it accidentally catching from a little bit of grease that might be on the bottom of the pan. So if you turn the flame off, you just have, it's safer and you have better control. So I'm going to add a little bit, a couple of tablespoons of brandy to the pan. And now I'm just going to, woo, there we go. Again, stand back. If you're nervous, just hold on to this. This is your safety blanket. I'm letting the alcohol cook off, and I'm letting the tomato paste get even a little more caramelized. And you're gonna see it's gonna burn off in about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And that's it. And now I'm gonna finish the pan sauce. So you can really season this sauce with whatever you want. Mustard, Worcestershire is traditional, but I have one little secret ingredient, which is optional, and that's a little bit of fish sauce, because it just increases the umami. And heavy cream. If you want it really peppery, if you love a peppery pan sauce, you could add more pepper right now, which I think I'm gonna do, because why not? So we're gonna throw some herbs on for decoration, because it's pretty, but you really don't need it for this. Once the cream is incorporated into the sauce, this is done. Your steak is done. Slice your steak, put the sauce on top, and that is it. This is such an easy, lovely dinner. I think like date night when you're cooking at home, I would make this. This is the best part of every video, when I get to eat it. This is a classic for a reason, it's just so good. I mean, you have the juicy steak, The sauce is savory, creamy, comes together in a flash. So if I opened a tableside restaurant and I served steak Diane and Cherries Jubilee, you'd all come, right? We did it. Fire department didn't get called. Smoke alarm didn't even go off. This was super fun. I hope you take this to heart. You do this in your own kitchen. And always remember, flambeing is your friend.